Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1737A, and today's date is December 10th, 2018, and the title of the episode is Central Banks Worldwide Are Worried That Government and the People Are Turning on Them. Before we get started, I wanted to talk about the patriots that are fighting for our country. Every generation seems to have its own president. Each seems to define an era. Our generation will have Donald Trump as their president. He will be remembered as the president who stood up to the deep state. This holiday season, Noble Gold is offering the solid silver Trump 2020 Freedom Coin. Noble Gold has sold thousands of these beautiful coins as collector items for investments. Yes, because these are 0.999% fine silver. And today, there's a holiday special offer on right now. Go to TrumpCoin2020.com and put the code X22 to receive free shipping if you buy 3 coins or more. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, we've been talking about how the plan that Q, Trump, the Patriots have been putting together includes getting rid of the central bank, changing the economic structure. And we've been talking about this for quite a while. Well, it looks like it is now confirmed. Q put out a post 2575, which I'm going to include in this report, and it talks about the Fed. It talks about the Fed raising the rates. It talks about what is coming. And if we take Q's post from the beginning, going back to 2017, and we start to put all this together, you can see how the plan is forming. Now, can Q tell everyone everything? Absolutely not. But from what Q does, we can create a full picture in what Q, Trump, Patriots are trying to do. But let's first start out in the UK. Now, Theresa May, she is battling right now. She's trying to convince everyone that this is a great deal. And it looks like that the vote might be delayed, or they might withdraw the parliamentary vote on the Brexit deal. And really what they're looking to do is they're trying to force something on the people that the people really don't want. This is not what they voted for. This is not what the people wanted. This is what the central bankers want. This is what the deep state wants. This is what those individuals who are in control, this is what they want. And it's completely obvious. I mean, look what's happening in France. Look what's happening in the UK. Look what's happening in the rest of the world. It is spreading. Now, we talk about the economy, the trade deals, the tariffs, and something very interesting happened. Now, Trump has been working out a new trade deal with China. Trump has been telling everyone through his tweets how great it is going. And Trump understands that with China, with Russia, and the rest of the world coming together and uniting against the central bank, they'll be able to push the central bank to the edge and get rid of it. Now, there are players out there that don't want this to happen. Remember, the central bank, their entire agenda right now is to reset the system, and they need someone to blame. Trump using the magic wand, making the economy look incredible, using the same manipulation that they've been using for a very long time, it's making it very, very difficult. And if Trump went ahead and had a trade deal made with China, well, that's the icing on the cake, because then Trump controls the narrative. So what did the deep state, the central bank, do? They decided to go ahead and arrest someone from China, Meng Wanzhou. She was the CFO of Huawei, which is a very large electronic company in China. Now, think about what is happening right now. They're figuring out ways to put China and the U.S. against each other. Now, reportedly, Trump didn't know about this arrest. This was done through the deep state because they see what Trump is doing. Trump is pushing the globalists out, pushing the central bankers out. And guess what? They don't want this to happen. Now, she was simply on her way to Mexico. And then all of a sudden, U.S. authorities and the Canadians, they grabbed her and refused to let her go. And reportedly, the plan is to extradite her to the United States, where she'll apparently face charges relating to Huawei's evasion of U.S. sanctions against Iran. Now, Trump is in the middle of negotiating a trade deal with China. Xi Jinping is on the same page. And this is a very big deal, because what they're trying to do, just like with everything else with Russia, they're trying to put China against the United States and the United States against China. So there are individuals, groups that are working against what Trump is trying to do. And you can see how they're trying to block this trade deal. Now, what's very interesting, and we've been talking about this for quite a while, but now we can see that it's all taking shape. Central banks around the world, they're very nervous right now. Actually, you could say they're in a panic. So how do we know they're in a panic? Well, South Africa's top monetary policymaker spoke for his peers around the world late last month when he declared that threats to central bank independence from political meddling are no longer just an emerging market phenomenon. The Federal Reserve Bank of England and European central banks are feeling the heat from elected lawmakers, while India and Turkey are among others under pressure. There's concern among the central bank community that the independence of central banks could be under threat. Now, here's a rundown of the central banks that are getting unwanted attention from politicians. Now, remember, Trump came out and started to criticize, contradict the central bank and pointed the finger at the central bank. So the number one central bank that is very worried about this is the United States, those individuals within the Federal Reserve. Then you have Turkey, India, Pakistan, New Zealand, UK, Italy, Austria, Greece, Cyprus, Latvia, Slovenia, Switzerland, Sweden, Mexico, Brazil. And there's many more. Now, what's very interesting about this is that all these central banks, they're worried about governments and the people looking into their business, that they'll no longer be independent. This is a threat to the central bank. Now, I want to go back to Q's post, and we're going to lead up to Q's latest post. Q's post number 135. Now, this was posted on November 11th, 2017. Gave a list of all the central banks that the Rothschild owned and controlled. And Q put all these banks in alphabetical order. And it's post 135, 136, and 137, and 138. And there are many, many banks. I didn't count them all. But it goes from A to Z. And almost every single country has a Rothschild central bank. Now, what's very interesting about all this, Q at the bottom of this says, the Fed and the IRS. Fact, U.S. Federal Reserve is a privately owned company sitting on its very own patch of land, immune to the U.S. laws. So, as we know, the Fed has never been audited. No one has ever looked at their books. These are all the Rothschild-owned bank. And Q is letting us know this is the end game here. Now, if we move to post 142, this was dated November 12, 2017. I'm going to read what this post says because this was quite a while ago and most of us probably forgot what it says. And a lot of it's going to sound strange, but bear with me on this. How did Soros replace family? This is in parentheses, Y, question mark. Who is family Y? Trace the bloodlines of these three families. What happened during World War II? Was Hitler a puppet? Who was his handler? What was the purpose? What was the real purpose of the war? What age was GS? What is the Soros family history? What has occurred since the fall of North Germany? Who is A. Merkel? What is A. Merkel's family's history? That's Angela Merkel, by the way. Follow the bloodline. Who died on the Titanic? What year did the Titanic sink? Why is this relevant? What exactly happened to the Titanic? What class of people were guaranteed a lifeboat? Why did select individuals not make it into the lifeboats? Why is this relevant? How do we know who was on the lifeboats, D or A? How were names and bodies recorded back then? When were tickets purchased for her maiden voyage? Who was specifically invited? Less than 10. What is the Fed? What does the Fed control? Who controls the Fed? Who approved the formation of the Fed? Why did Hollywood glorify Titanic as a tragic love story? Who lived in the movie? What man? Why is this relevant? Opposite is true. Now, let me read part of this and some of the answers to these questions here. How did Soros replace Family Y? Who is Family Y? Rothschild. What year did the Titanic sink? 1912. Why is this relevant? It occurred before the creation of the Fed. Who died on the Titanic? John Jacob Astor IV, richest man on the ship. Benjamin Guggenheim, Captain Edward John Smith. Isidore and Ida Strauss, co-owners of Macy's. Thomas Andrews, Lady Duff Gordon, Lady Countess Roths. Lucy Noel Martha Dwyer Edwards. Milvina Dean. What exactly happened to the Titanic? What class of people were guaranteed a lifeboat? Women and children, and first class. Why did select individuals not make it into the lifeboats? John Jacob Astor IV, Benjamin Guggenheim, Isidore and Ida Strauss were all opposed to the creation of the central bank. Why is this relevant? Wealthy, influential opposition was eliminated. How do we know who was on the lifeboats, D or A? Entire lists of lifeboats and survivors in them. Boat A was allowed to drift off after it was partially submerged. It was recovered a month later by RMS Oceanic, another White Star Line ship. 3 bodies were left in the boat, and 13 of survivors made it to Boat D. 25 people were on board. Boat D excluded Boat A's survivors. Known people to survive of Boat A and D are Michael Marcel Navratil, Edmund Marcel Navratil, Carolyn Brown, Hugh Woolner, Moritz Hacken, Frederick Maxfield Hoyt, and Rhoda Abbott. How were names and bodies recorded back then? According to Wikipedia, upon recovery, each body retrieved by the Mackay Bennett was numbered and given it as detailed a description as possible to help aid in identification. The physical appearance of each body, height, weight, age, hair, and eye color, visible birthmarks, scars, or tattoos, was cataloged, and any personal effects of the bodies were gathered and placed in small canvas bags corresponding to their number. It was decided to preserve all bodies of first-class passengers because of the need to visually identify wealthy men to resolve any disputes over large estates. When were tickets purchased for her maiden voyage? In July of 1911, White Star and Harlan and Wolff announced a date for Titanic's maiden voyage, March 20th, 1912. September 20th, 1911, Titanic's maiden voyage delayed due to necessary diversion of workers and materials to repair Olympic. October 11th, 1911, White Star officially announced new date for Titanic's maiden voyage in the London Times, April 10th, 1912. This information leads me to believe that tickets would not have been sold before July 1911, when the first date was announced. It seems to make sense also that ticket sales would slow or stop when construction was interrupted. Then ticket sales might pick up again after October 11, 1911, announcement of the new launch date. According to the second link, it looks like Joseph LaRoche purchased tickets for his family in March 1912. One family was transferred to the Titanic when the ship they were ticketed for was canceled. This transfer happened in the spring of 1912, which at least tells us that the Titanic was not sold out by spring. So who was specifically invited? John Jacob Astor IV. Emilio Portalupi, well-respected stonesman, received a telegram from the Astors inviting him to join them on Titanic as they returned from holiday in Egypt. He was given first-class travel and, it appears, wanted him to use his skills on statues outside their Newport villa. Bill Mueller served as secretary to a Dutch traffic inspector whose job was to inspect ships for insurance and investment firms and was invited guest aboard the Titanic from the ship's owner. Mott was an influential evangelist and longtime YMCA official who shared the Nobel Peace Prize in 1946. He and a colleague were supposedly offered free passage on the Titanic by White Star Line official interested in their work, but declined and instead took the more humble liner Lapland. The Italian inventor, wireless telegraphy pioneer and winner of 1909 Nobel Prize in Physics, was offered free passage on Titanic but had taken the Lusitania 3 days earlier. Q says less than 10. Alfred Gwynn Vanderbilt. Someone in their family objected to their sailing aboard the new ship because so many things can go wrong on a maiden voyage. What is the Fed? Consortium of private central banks in the U.S. What does the Fed control? U.S. monetary policy, including interest rates. Who controls the Fed? Rothschilds. Who approved the formation of the Fed? Woodrow Wilson. Why did H. Hollywood glorify Titanic as a tragic love story? To hide history, distract from the fact that 3 major opponents of the Fed died that night. Who lived in the movie? What man? The line of questions suggests someone famous was shown to have survived in the movie, but in reality died that night and his identity was stolen. Possible list: Jack Thayer, William Ernest Carter, George Dutton, Widener Harry, Elkins Widener, J. Bruce Ismay. Why is this relevant? He's a rich guy that kills himself after losing all his money in the crash. Their narrative changes the history, or so they like to think. The Titanic sank due to erroneous, uncontrollable fire, not iceberg. And this is coming from many different experts. Sabotage is the credible theory rather than ramming an iceberg, which was the cover-up. So it looks like this was sabotage to get rid of certain people so they can push forward with the central bank creation. Now, Q just posted 2575. Now, I'm going to go over Q's post in the next report, but I wanted to pull this one out because it's relevant. So this was today, and it reads as follows. The plan to have the Fed raise rates, this is in brackets and bold, steep incline beginning March 2019, in an effort to kill the economy prior to 2020 presidential election, is known and planned for. Structure change coming. Now, and it's signed off Q. Now, this is telling us that everything in this economy is about to change. What we've been talking about is true. It's already known. It's already planned. Now, is Q going to say, oh, look, Trump is working with Powell? No, not at this point. But they already know this has been the plan. And Q is letting us know that structure change is coming. The way the world is today is going to change completely, and that is coming very soon. Now, when we're talking about getting prepared, we're getting prepared for a transition into a new structure. Remember, we need to get out of this central bank system. We need to go to a people system. Think about what the central banks have been panicking about, that governments and people, they're questioning their independence. It's not just the U.S. It's spreading around the world, which means they're losing control. The central bank is losing control. The deep state is losing control. And they're all panicking right now. There's a movement here. So get prepared and get ready. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.